Amir Abdullah, I just put next to my notes, who? He's not a threat to me, respectfully. I mean, he's probably a better running back than I would ever be. But second is the PP.
Probably.
Yeah.
I'd say so.
I mean, you never know. Maybe I'll get in shape and let me run a 40.
Today, we're going to be talking about the best handcuffs in Dynasty football right now, with an emphasis on the rookie class. Now, in previous videos, we have brought you names like Jerome Ford. We've talked about names like Chuba Hubbard in the past. If you think about last year, Jaylen Warren, Gus Edwards, Zach Moss, Devin Singletary, Tajay Spears, all guys who weren't the starter of their team, but ended up playing important fantasy roles. So let's try and find the next great handcuff. I feel like Jerome Ford was probably our best hit, Badaki,
yeah, no question.
in the last year or so. But we're going to bring you 6 players. Brayan Allen is the first one that we're going to start with here. Brayan Allen is an interesting name, Badaki, because you and I were not in on Brayan Allen before the NFL draft. A lot of people had him as an RB1. We didn't have him top 5, and a lot of people really, really did not like that from us. Now, drops in the NFL draft, goes to a landing spot that's not necessarily ideal. Right now, Keep Trade has him as RB51. I'm about 10 spots lower, but I still think he's a fantastic handcuff in like the 4th round of a rookie Superflex draft. Round 4 hit rates, not good, man. They're not good. All right. 17.1% hit rate over the last 10 years. That's the top 24 points per game season. Here's a couple guys that can give you, the light at the end of the tunnel. Dameon Pierce, 2022.
Come on.
Difference is he had no one to compete with, right? Ramondre Stevenson, 2021. Difference is he was competing with Damian Harris, not Breece Hall. But the Jets draft him in round 4. We didn't love his film, but his production profile speaks for itself. Over 1,200 rushing yards in both his freshman and sophomore seasons as a freshman at the age of 17, 18 years old. Almost 1,300 rush yards, 12 rushing touchdowns as a true freshman, 17, 18 years old. Ultimately, I think the NFL let him slide because they weren't necessarily in love with his film, but there is a ton of proof that he can handle the rock.
No question.
Like, what you want in a handcuff on your team is a guy, if the guy goes down, I know that dude can handle the workload, no questions asked, right? And speaking of the guy, that's Breece Hall, he's going to be the unquestioned workhorse, no questions about that. Breece is a different level talent. Braylon can't hold a candle to Breece Hall. However, as we all know, Breece is not invincible. We know in his rookie season, he tore his ACL. God forbid if Breece were to sustain a serious injury this year, Brayan Allen could thrive as the guy in an Aaron Rodgers-led offense. So at the end of the day, when you're talking about handcuffs, it's, okay, if that guy goes down, is there evidence that this dude could fill the role? And I think Braylon fits that bill, even though you and I weren't huge fans of him,
Yeah, and the fact that he's going to go into this offensive line as well, having one of, I would say, flipping the offensive line, struggled with injuries this past year, and now they go draft Olu Fashanu behind Breece Hall. If that does go down, there's no excuses for Brayan Allen. There's opportunity.
And they add Tyron Smith, by the way, from the Cowboys.
Exactly. There's more opportunity. There's more success. There's more consistency with this offensive line. And not only that, we have to remember Aaron Rodgers makes everyone around him better. Not saying that he's going to make Brayan Allen a superstar, but at least he can give you a decent flex option if Breece Hall goes down, or maybe a low-end RB2 if Breece Hall goes down. Don't think about this crazy expectations. Breece Hall
let's get on the same page. Brayan Allen is no one unless Breece Hall is injured, right? I mean, he's not someone you start in fantasy unless there's an injury there, right?
Yeah, 1,000%. So, you pick him up as just in case, just like you were picking up Alexander Madison every single year, knowing that Dalvin Cook was going to miss 4 or 5 games, right? That's the type of opportunities that you are thinking of there. Going into my player, going to my beloved New York Football Giants, it may be a little bit of surprise, maybe not. Tyron Tracy.
Love Tyron.
Come on, 5th round pick to my beloved New York Football Giants. RB70 on Keep Trade Cut. RB119 in the Flock Fantasy community. I think there's some more moving around people have to do over there. In my rankings, I'm just above that RB70 and RB68. We have to envision this old Bills offense, right? These Bills old days, because this could be the Zach Moss and Devin Singletary from 2019 to the 2021 Bills, right? Like that was the thought process coming into, if I'm not mistaken, the 2020 season. It was a Zach Moss or Devin Singletary. Nobody knew who to pick, and whichever one you drafted, you hope it was the guy. Not saying Tyron Tracy Devin Singletary is not going to be the guy in this backfield. It's just more of a same thing with Breece Hall. What if he does go down? What if there is injuries? What if you see more opportunity for Tyron Tracy? And that's exactly where I want to go to, the PPR opportunity. If you didn't know, Tyron Tracy in his first 4 years of college at Iowa, was a wide receiver. He was primarily a wide receiver, then transferred to Purdue, became a running back, and was really successful at that position. So this is a running back / wide receiver threat. And you already know Brian Dable is going to be scheming him up, putting him into space. Look, Saquon Barkley is no longer on this team. Devin Singletary had his best career this past year with the Houston Texans. And I think going back to Brian Dable's offense in the Bills, you can kind of see how they were utilizing Zach Moss and Devin Singletary. And maybe you'll have the first Devin Singletary in the first half of the season. But if he does go down, or if he is struggling, they're going to start rotating these other guys. Because if we're terrible at the run game, then what is the problem? Is it Devin Singletary's problem, or maybe it's the offensive line's problem? But he's also the instant number 2. Okay? He can run the ball. He can catch the ball. And respectfully, Eric Gray and Gary Brightwell, who's also on this team, they don't scare me whatsoever. Okay? These are two guys that are not going to be taking opportunities away from Devin Singletary, and in my personal opinion, Tyron Tracy. So I love everything that's going to be happening for Tyron, just in case Devin Singletary goes down.
Yeah, I'm a huge fan of him. He had a cool interview recently where they were like, so talk to us about the transition. He's like, honestly, I wish I did it sooner. I'm a better running back than I am wide receiver. And they were like, do you think you would have made it as a wide receiver? He was like, no, I wouldn't have made it as a wide receiver. But there's some clear, my comparisons when I was watching him is I was getting a lot of the Antonio Gibson, Rachaad White type of vibes and that like hybrid running back wide receiver combo. And remember, Rachaad White was a 4th round pick. Now 5th round for Tyron Tracy, but the 5th and 4th round hit rates for running backs are not all that different. I think it's 17 versus 16% for round 4 versus round 5. So I'm a big fan of him, man. And I don't know where you stand on this, but if we were just the two guys we've talked about so far, Tyron and Brayan Allen, I think Tyron has a better opportunity to get into the rotation straight away and hold some 100%. Value as like a 3rd down threat than I would say Brayan Allen, because really Breece is better at everything Brayan does. No disrespect. You know what I mean? Like everything that Brayan does, Breece is better. So you're going to have to pull that guy off the field to get someone who's an inferior talent. But with Tyron, not to say that Devin's not a good pass catcher, because he is. I mean, he's caught 40 to 50 balls most years, but I think he can instantly step in and offer something that Singletary doesn't offer at this point in his career.
Yeah, and it's weird because Devin Singletary and Tyron kind of offer the same thing.
Yeah,
but we have to find out who's the better talent. You know, Tyron Tracy has only been doing it as a running back for 1 year. I can't tell you. I think right now my gut feeling, because he's not even younger. He's 20, like a 20 older running back. You know,
he's old. I mean, he's a 6-year senior, but I just think he's a fun player, man.
Exactly.
Think about, okay, so do you know how hard it is to get drafted in the 5th round if you're a 6th-year senior and you transition from running back in your 5th year of college?
Gosh, man. I mean,
there's some, maybe we should change our thought a little bit about that player. That's impressive that he got drafted round 5, in my opinion. It shows how talented he is.
I completely
I'm a
agree.
big fan of his game.
Yeah.
Do you want your Dynasty team reviewed by Badaki and myself? You will see us going live multiple times a week, reviewing people's Dynasty teams. If you want that experience for yourself, it's very simple. All you got to do is become a Mother Flocker member with the code LAND. Maybe you don't know what direction to take your team in. Should I rebuild? Should I compete?
Ooh.
What trade should I make? We can help you decide what trades you should go send out. We can help you decide what to do with your draft capital. If you want that kind of guidance, that kind of help, that kind of just, second look over your team, then become a Mother Flocker member with the code LAND and get that team review from us. I'm going to switch it up just because I didn't want to only talk about rookies. I wanted to stay true to the title and who is the best handcuff. I've felt like this for the last 6-7 months on our channel. Kendre Miller. No, not a rookie, but younger than a lot of rookies you're drafting right now. And you're drafting a lot of those rookies who are older than him, higher than you would Kendre Miller. He's my RB22. I know that's pretty ridiculous. It's a lot higher than any website. I really think that there is a pathway for him this year. You know, you look at draft capital. If we're talking about draft capital, that should be a huge thing in favor of Kendre Miller. He's a round 3 pick. Round 3 running backs hit at a 54% rate. That's a top 24 points per game season in their first 4 years. And let's keep in mind, he was dealing with injuries all last offseason. I mean, there really wasn't a moment that this guy could be himself. Combine, didn't test. Yeah. Right? Was dealing with the injuries. Didn't really have a pro day from what I remember. Didn't have a rookie camp because he wasn't healthy. I mean, not the rookie camp he would have wanted. And didn't really get in OTAs, preseason. He never really got to establish himself. I should have been more aware of that in projecting his role in his first year. He never had a chance really to show himself, right? The fact that Kendre was still drafted round 3, pick 8, even though he had those injuries, speaks to how much that the Saints see in him. And he's a super young player. He's 21 years old, younger than, over a year younger than Blake Corum.
Yeah.
Over a year younger than Marshawn Lloyd. I mean, he was drafted as a 20-year-old guy, and the guy who he's currently competing with in his backfield is Alvin Kamara, who is so inefficient on the ground, it's not even funny. I mean, he was great for fantasy last year because of the check down king, Derek Carr.
Derek Carr, yeah.
But if you actually look at what Alvin Kamara did on the ground, he was not that explosive player we are used to seeing. He's not that like dynamic. He lost some dynamic ability, if we're honest. On the ground in particular, he is not a good player. I mean, last year in 2023, look at this. Yards per attempt, 3.9. Definitely some of the worst of his career. 69th in the NFL amongst running backs. Yards after contact per attempt, he's 80th. Missed tackles forced per attempt, 54th. Breakaway percentage, 13% breakaway percentage for Alvin Kamara. Do you know how low that is for this guy? That is not the same Alvin Kamara you and I fell in love with.
Sure.
His elusive rating is low. His PFF run grade is low. And you can get Kendre Miller for a late second, early third in rookie drafts right now. I'm telling you, in the rookie drafts I've been bedocking in Superflex leagues, how do you feel about this? Because I feel confident that you can stretch out. If you use the land method, a slow draft, I think there are plenty of leagues where you have the 302 and someone's like, I'll give you Kendre. He's not done anything for me. Like, I couldn't even sell Terry McLaurin in the last draft we were in for the 212. The 301, you know what I mean? I think the rookie fever this year is a different breed. And I get it because it's one of the deepest classes ever. But I think you can go out and get Kendre Miller for an early third in a lot of Superflex leagues.
100%. I think it just depends on who you prefer because early thirds in the rookie draft leagues where, I mean, I've drafted Jalen Wright. I've drafted a Marshawn Lloyd. In the running back position, obviously you can get wide receivers. Sometimes you get Jermaine Burton. I think that's a little bit of a different conversation. But if we're talking about
Baker's there.
if we're talking about running back specifically, I think Marshawn Lloyd and Jalen Wright are definitely in contention of the conversation of maybe.
That's a good conversation then.
You know, I would personally rather have both of those guys over Kendre Miller.
Okay.
Yeah, and look, the draft capital may be a difference because yes, that goes from a second round. Right, because Kendre was day 2 or round 2.
Kendre was round 3, day 2. Yeah,
but Jalen Wright and Marshawn Lloyd were both day 3, round 3 picks. So
no, they were round 4 picks.
Both of them were round 4. Okay,
both
so
of them were round 4.
Look,
I'm sorry. Marshawn Lloyd was day 2.
Yeah, Marshawn Lloyd was day 2 on round 3.
Wright was day 3.
Exactly. Okay, so. Look, you can just preference how your preference on either one of those running backs, depending on if you're really following the hit rate. I think I'd rather take the chance on a Marshawn Lloyd and a Jalen Wright over Kendre because of also the situation. And you know,
I disagree.
Yeah, well, let me tell you why. It's because of I think this situation is pretty significant for Alvin Kamara. I've kind of changed my tune on Kendre Miller, specifically. It's like, okay, I have to wait, but how long do I have to wait? And what happens if Alvin Kamara somehow gets traded this offseason, hypothetically, right? Or right before the season, you know the 2025 class is strong. Is Kendre Miller really going to be the guy after 2025? I think for a just-in-case piece for Alvin Kamara, I think it's pretty crucial. But I think what the way I'm thinking about it is like, I don't know if he's actually going to be that guy anymore.
Okay.
So I'm not discrediting his talent. I'm just more saying I think it's been a little bit too late already, especially if Alvin Kamara is declining and Kendrick Miller can't even get onto the field and beat him out. That's how
I think
I'm
that's
viewing
all
it.
that crucial context I included, which we're
Yeah,
not considering. He
the
wasn't healthy the
injuries.
entire last offseason. He didn't
Sure.
have a chance to establish himself. In the one game he did, he actually went off.
Week 18. Yeah,
So
I get.
think you think about older veteran running backs on these huge contracts. What happens when they slow down? What happened to Zeke? Oh, but there's all this guaranteed money. Get him off my team.
Yeah.
What happened to Dalvin Cook? Well, they're not going to cut see a Dalvin Cook. So if Alvin Kamara is going to cost them that much money soon enough, I think Kendra is going to get his opportunity. I think this is the year that he establishes himself on the ground.
And I think we need to figure out what is that for him though? Like it's that like 120 attempts? Because I don't envision him getting over 120 attempts this year.
I think if Alvin Kamara is as inefficient as he was last year, then there is a real chance Kendra Miller could take this backfield.
And Alvin Kamara then transitions to just like the pass catching back, you think?
Exactly.
Okay.
That's how I view it. Because you can only be that inefficient so long before someone says, what the hell is happening here? And by the way, the same Saints offensive coordinator that's been blindly trusting Alvin Kamara on the ground for the past 2 years is no longer there.
I think
so. There's no favoritism here anymore.
Yeah, and I'll just close it out with this thought, and then we can move on, unless you want to rebuttal. Or I just think that Alvin Kamara on the field is a weapon. People utilize him as a weapon
for sure,
and I think that's what still is happening because if you don't do an RPO, Alvin Kamara can easily get into or not RPO, but yeah, an RPO type of play. Alvin Kamara is a threat because you have to account for the the running back and then the quarterback, even though he's not as crazy mobile. It's very interesting because
I don't know, dude. Like how I just don't agree. I don't know how anyone could watch a Saints game last year and be like, "This is explosive."
It's not. It wasn't.
This is like a different breed of offense. It was awful, and
100%.
They were not efficient at all. And the checkdowns have to stop. It's not. It's not going to work long term. And if that means you're going to have to change your offense to cater more towards a traditional run game, Alvin Kamara is not your guy at this point of his career.
But no one else is there to compete outside of Chris Olave. They didn't bring anyone in. If they would have brought in a Brian Thomas Jr., an Xavier Worthy, even a Polk in the second or third
here's
round.
the difference. We're not scheming up 7 to 10 drop down targets a game for Kendra Miller. That is an option. And that is a different offensive coordinator now.
Yeah, you're right. So we got to wait and see what's going to happen with Kendra Miller. I changed my tune a little bit. I think though the only pathway is for him to find success is maybe once Kamara's off this team. But look, I'm happy to be wrong.
Sure.
I definitely have Kendrick Miller a lot in my leagues. So we'll wait and see. My second player, kind of similar to Zach, and this may be a little bit of a cheat here because I think a lot of people in the community don't technically view him as a handcuff. But according to all platforms, he is. Or he's not, and to me, he is a handcuff, and that is Chase Brown downtown. Yeah, if you guys know this, I love Chase Brown, and coming into this 2024 season, I think there is going to be a significant workload for him. My belief and expectation is that Chase Brown is going to be the pass catching back in this backfield. I do believe he can take over this workload and the opportunities from Zach Moss as well. And you have to envision, Joe Mixon no longer on this team. Joe Mixon this past year, 259 attempts on the ground alone, 64 targets. That's not all going to Zach Moss. I'll tell you that right now. There's no way that's happening. Chase Brown, coming out of college, was a workhorse type of running back. He could do it on the ground and in the air, over 300 plus attempts on the ground in Illinois, and that's something that's exciting. And to be truthfully honest with you, Zach Moss' first highest attempts on the ground was this past year with the Colts, with over 100 attempts. 100, I think it was 82 attempts for the Indianapolis Colts. Zach Moss hasn't handled a significant workload like that in a long time since college. To me, Chase Brown is not only known to handle a workload, but he's also being utilized in the air, which is exciting. And this is what you kind of see a trend here with all of my players. These are PPR opportunities, guys that can get the ball in the air, which is exciting and gives you those fantasy points. And Chase Brown is that guy. We saw a little bit of that in the second half where we saw him being utilized a little bit more with Joe Mixon. It wasn't this big extravagant, but you said, oh, hey, that's Chase Brown. He looks explosive. He looks a little bit better than Joe Mixon because Joe Mixon was kind of on the downtrend, right? Expect this backfield to be Zach Moss, I would say, for the first half of the season, maybe weeks 1 to 4, 1 to 5, but then start to see that transition, in my opinion, where you see Chase Brown starting to get a little bit more of the workload. Maybe during that bye week, Chase Brown is a starter over Zach Moss, or maybe Zach Moss does go down. And keep in mind, Handcuffs is based off of what you were projecting in the air, but also just in case a player goes down. Because that is crucial. That's why you draft Handcuffs, in case your RB1 goes down and you need him to step up. So Chase Brown is a phenomenal guy to go out and get.
He's a great pick. He absolutely could be the starter for that team. I think you and I would agree. We don't feel like Zach Moss or Chase Brown are safe next year, right?
Oh, 100%.
And the 25 class, but they're both guys that could have value in season. You could sell them if one of them solidifies himself as a starter. Obviously, Zach Moss has the benefit of getting that cash money, but
yeah,
I definitely like it. Kamani Vidal out of Troy is you can't make a running back video on anything really without talking about Kamani Vidal at this point. I think the community is a little overboard right now. But I still love the player. You can see my ranking. I have him RB62. I thought that was high. Keep Trade Cut has him RB49 and Flock Fantasy RB47. Look, I love Kamani. I'm drafting him in a lot of fourth rounds, but I'm not going to sit here and say he's the unquestioned starter. This is all about landing spot, okay?
Yeah.
Path to opportunities. The draft capital is truly awful. You've heard me talk about draft capital a lot in this take, but that does not benefit Kamani at all. In fact, Round 6 has a 3.2% hit rate in the last decade, and it is the worst hit rate of any round for running backs. Worse than Round 7. That's right, worse than Round 7 in the last decade. But again, this is less about the draft capital and more about the situation. Harbaugh and Greg Roman committed to the run-heavy approach when they drafted Joe out all in the first round. And now Kamani is competing with J.K. Dobbins, who is a great prospect. But man, he's not the same player.
No.
He has been healthy for 9 out of 51 games in the past 3 years since 2021, right? He has been healthy 17.6% of his games since 2021. He's got Gus Edwards there, who had a great 2023 season. We know he has a significant injury history himself, and he's 29 years old. Not to mention that Dobbins is coming off a torn Achilles. Y'all know I have been notoriously anti-Achilles people. Robinson, Cam Akers. It's not worked out well for those players. The hit rate is awful, but it is best case scenario when you're talking about the landing spot. So I think he is a must-own player, but I think he's getting so popular that it's almost to the point where, you can't draft him early third round like some people are doing, but I think he's definitely a must-own and deserves to be in this conversation.
Yeah, and the biggest things that you kind of mentioned are the injury histories with JK and Gus. If these guys can't stay healthy, respectfully, I don't think J.K. Dobbins is going to be starting, or for a particular amount of games or playing, getting a little. Okay,
let's put a percentage on that. What percentage chance would you give to Dobbins, Edwards, and Kamani being the starters?
Gus Edwards has the highest chance to be the starter. So I would say
I agree.
Right
That's
now,
how I'm reading it too.
Right now, Gus Edwards is, let's just say he's 100% locked in week 1. J.K. Dobbins, to start throughout the season, I would say is 20%. I think he's more of a reliever guy if Gus Edwards does go down. But I would say if Gus Edwards goes down, I don't think it's automatically JK. I think that's the biggest thing. It's you're going to take a chance.
It'll depend on what Kamani does in preseason and in camp to show the team. But he had a lot of production at Troy. I would put it this way. I really think if you were to ask me who leads this backfield in rushing this year when the year is over, I put it straight 33% three ways. I really don't know, but that is exciting to me at minimum to own a guy like Kamani, thinking about that backfield. And there could be 2 running backs that are valuable if they really run it the way that they did. But the thing that Dobbins has in his favor is he's joining Greg Roman, who was there for him in his tenure in Baltimore. Same with Gus Edwards.
He was.
So maybe he has been really sad for Dobbins. He's got a soft spot for him. And if you think about it, Cam Akers, not a good asset long term, but man, he had that one stretch after his Achilles tore where he put up some good production. So I put it at a straight 33% across the board, but that situation is enough for me to get really excited, you know?
Yeah, look, that makes sense. We got to wait and see what happens with J.K. Dobbins. I did say I wouldn't even be surprised if he doesn't make this team. But look, maybe that's my own thought process of him not being successful anymore.
Sure.
And I love J.K. Guys, I drafted J.K.
Yeah.
Dobbins and Cam Akers. They both tore their one ACL, one Achilles. All right.
This was 3 years ago or 4 years ago in a startup.
Yeah, in our home league.
He was so excited about his team, and then
had great running backs. It would have been a championship team if they weren't injured.
That's when he knew. He fucked up. Who you got for us? Who's the last player?
Yeah, my third player here. I'll keep it short and sweet. Dylan Loba, coming out of New Hampshire, a phenomenal running back. I think it's very underrated because of the pathway. Drafted in the 6th round. Now, the 6th round hit rate for running backs are terrible, but the pathway is what's exciting here. Zamir White, who is definitely going to be the starting running back, but what do we know is that he's had 2 torn ACLs in the past, both in college. They used to call him Zeus because he was a 5-star recruit and was going to be this guy and had all these injuries. The chances of him re-injuring or having an injury at all is pretty significant once you have already torn both ACLs. So I'm not saying he's going to miss time, just saying the chances are higher when it comes down to injury history. Second is Alexander Madison. That's the next guy on the depth chart. I mean, he couldn't hold the job when Alvin was gone, or Dalvin Cook was gone. He ended up spending time with Ty Chandler, and at one point, Ty Chandler looked better than Alexander Madison. So, is he going to be on this team at the end of this, at the beginning of the season? And maybe Dylan Lobb impresses in preseason. And Amir Abdullah, I just put next to my notes. Who? He's not a threat to me, respectfully. I mean, he's probably a better running back than I would ever be. But second is the PP.
Probably. Yeah, I'd say so.
I mean, you never know. Maybe I'll get in shape and let me run a 40. PPR monster in college is Dylan Law, which is phenomenal. Once again, coming out of New Hampshire, looking at this 2023 season, he caught 68 out of 88 targets. He had 708 yards. He had a 90.5 receiving grade on PFF. 700 of those 708 yards were yards after the catch. The boy can move in space, so don't sleep on him when it comes down to the PPR upside. Once again, a trend you see with all these guys that can catch the ball, guys that can potentially find a role in this offense. Maybe he started off as special teams as a punt returner or as a kick returner, and then he says, hey, look at that explosiveness. We want to get him in that backfield. Maybe Zamir White misses a game or two. Alexander Madison can easily be beaten out. I like Dylan Lob or Lobe.
I think it's Lobe. Sade. Look, I don't want to rain on the parade. This is the only guy that we really disagree on in this video.
That's fair.
Dylan Lobe was one of these hype names before the NFL draft that a lot of people were like, this is the dude. This is the sleeper this year. This is the guy. And I took a second, reviewed his film, watched, I think, 3 games. It was hard because he played at an FCS school, which is not like FBS. That's not D1 pretty much.
Yeah.
It is technically, but it's not the top competition. He played for New Hampshire in an FCS school. Here's my issue. Every player that you and I have brought so far, I believe, can handle the rock and be important on the ground for their team. I genuinely, there is 0% of my body. Let me say this. 0.01% of my body, my mind, my heart, my soul.
No feelings.
Too intense. There's 0.01% of me that thinks he can be the guy on the ground if Zamir White goes down. And that's because if you're an FCS guy, you got to be so impressive on the ground. You have to have the most impressive analytics I've ever seen for me to even consider you. So let me just take a little second here and rain on the parade, okay? Out of 268 running backs in college football, that's FBS and FCS combined with 100 attempts. This is where he ranks in these important categories analytically, all right? His PFF run grade, 144th at 79. His yards per attempt, 4.6, which is 192nd. I'm sorry, you're averaging 4.6 yards per attempt at an FCS school.
Hey, he tried his best.
Even if someone averaged 4.6 in the SEC, I would be like, okay. Yards after contact per attempt, 231st out of 268 running backs. Wasn't good after contact. Missed tackles forced, 197th. Breakaway percentage at 35, which is 151st. Terrible elusive rating. So my issue with him is I honestly do not see a pathway in which this dude is handling the rock for a team very often. Like, I think his best case scenario is a worse version of James White. So this is the only dude that we disagree on. I'm sorry,
No, and that's okay.
He was the most disappointing film I watched this year of any hype name the community threw at me.
And all those things are valid. I'm not saying he's going to be the pass catching. I'm not saying he's going to be the workhorse. I'm not saying that Zamir White goes down, he's going to win this job. I'm saying, look, there could be a pathway to where this guy's going undrafted. I picked him up in our rookie drafts.
I hear you.
And you could just pick him up because maybe you do have a Zamir White and already an Alexander Madison, and you know maybe something is going to happen because these guys get injured often, or Alexander Madison can't hold his job. Dylan does have a pathway to get onto the fields. Now, is he going to be successful in the field? Probably not. Is he going to be this guy that instantly comes out of the workloads and says, you know what, I'm the best running back in the NFL? Absolutely not. I'm just excited about the pass catching opportunities that we might be seeing with some of these dump off passes from Aiden O'Connell and or Gardner Minshew, and that we've seen, this past year with Zach Moss, right? With Gardner Minshew in the Colts. So this is not a go out and spend all your fab type of guy. This is go out and saying he's probably on your waiver wire right now. Pick him up just to have a little bit of fun, because if these guys do go down in front of him, hey. You've seen these yards after the catch. You've seen these yards and the targets that he got in New Hampshire. It may not be the best school.
See,
I like
that's where we disagree. Mm-hmm. If Zamir White goes down, I don't think it's Dylan Loba season. So I would much rather take a shot on some of these other names, like a Rasheen Ali, who's in a lot of undrafted options there. Blake Watson out of Denver. I think he is a more enticing guy to me. So it's just the issue for me is, again, Will Shipley, Isaac Orindo, I just don't see a scenario in which he is ever the guy on the ground for them. And if I'm betting on a handcuff on my taxi, I want to know that they can handle the workload. I mean, people might think, oh, you're over exaggerating FCS. Go back and look at any running back who's ever played in the FCS. Give me an example, guys.
Dylan's going to be the guy. I believe
Pierre Strong was the last guy. He played for South Dakota State. He got drafted in the 4th round. Everyone was Pierre Strong. He's going to be so exciting. He was so good in college. I mean, look at it. In the FCS, he averaged 7 yards per carry. He had 1,700 yards, 18 touchdowns. Pierre Strong didn't do a damn thing because the competition between FCS and FBS is completely different. And if you're dog shit on the ground and against FCS, you're not jumping up a level from college to NFL at that point. You're basically jumping from like 6 levels to the NFL. The difference in talent. So
talent, right?
Like I'm not trying to rain on the parade. I'm just saying something. Guy I cannot get on board with. I'll have no shares.
Yeah, and once again, there's no fab you have to spend because he's probably in waiver wires right now. So go pick him up if you got a spot, and if not, go pick up the Rashid Ali because I think those are great honorable mentions as well. I mean, we kind of mentioned these guys happened last year, but yeah, all these other guys that we didn't bring, the Will Shipleys, we wanted to bring guys I would say maybe that were not as
not on the radar.
Yeah, not on the radar, right? But if you look at some of these guys that are being drafted in our most recent rookie drafts, Kamani Vidal, you have the Brayan Allen, Tyron Tracy, Bucky Irving, Aldrick Estime is a guy that we both, I think I can confidently say that I like a lot. Like you said, Isaiah Davis. So there's definitely guys out there that you can still go and pick up that are available in your rookie drafts after. So keep that in mind as well. So some of these guys 100%. Are just guys we want to talk about,
No, absolutely. I mean, look, like I said, I'm not saying Dylan Lob's a bad. It's not bad that you pick him up for no fab. I just think you're missing the roster spot instead of a Rasheen Ali, a Blake Watson, a Isaiah Davis, like you just mentioned. So no, I hear you, but it's just a difference of opinion. That's okay.
Yeah, that's okay.
I wonder what you guys think. Let us know in the comments below. Hit that like button, subscribe, and we'll see you guys soon. All love. Now that those idiots are done talking, who needs some rankings?
Hell yeah, I need some rankings.
Then use promo code LAND, LAND, for 30% off any membership at flockfantasy.com.
Oh.
It's so easy. Even your grandma could scan that QR code right there.